Hi, I'm Mickey O'Neill, Director of Communications with Global Traffic Matrix.
And I'm Tim Flatt, President of Global Traffic Matrix.
What you see here is our boardroom and conference room. This is where we would present our polished presentations to leaders from around the country and around the world. But that's not where the work really happens. Why don't you go with us behind the scenes to what we call the war room and see how it really works.
Hi, this is Tim Flatt. Welcome back to our war room here at Global Traffic Matrix. Today we're going to talk about the compensation plan. I like to say it this way here: compensation plan as simple as 1, 2, 3. Now, all right, so I guess we should put commas there. Simple as 1, 2, 3. So here's what we're going to talk about. Basically, there are two different ways that you have expenses, okay? Because you know what? If you're going to talk about being in business, if you're going to talk about treating it right, you need to look at what your expenses are. It's one of the most important things you do at the very beginning. So your expenses, what are your expenses? Well, first of all, you have an annual fee. Your annual fee is $149.95. That covers the tools, the training, and ultimately a turnkey operation. So that's an annual fee. The next thing you have is your monthly fee. That's called auto ship. Now your auto ship is either $29.95 or $49.95, depending which package you choose. And basically what that provides you with is traffic and your branding tool. All right. So you have two expenses. So the first thing we need to talk about if we're going to be good business people is how are we going to cover those expenses? Because you can't start making money until you cover your expenses. Well, the first thing you can do is this. We have a great news for you. I'm even going to change colors here. I'm so excited about this here. There are three revenue streams. Now, the first thing, we'd like to look at it like this here. We'd like to segment it for you. So you spend $149 here. We'd like to say at this point here, we have something called the Quick Start Bonus. The Quick Start Bonus pays you $25. Now, if you sponsor two people, that means you make $50. All right, and now you qualify for matching. And so if you do this here, and then you encourage each of those two people to sponsor two, all right, you get 50 and 50. So it's simply 2 plus 2. You sponsor two, you help them sponsor two, and guess what? You've just earned your $150 back. Just like that, you're in it for free from the annual fee for the rest of the year. So we use that first stream of income to cover that. Now, like I said earlier in some of our tapes, listen, there's people out there who will sponsor hundreds of people. Well, then they're obviously going to make a lot more than being free. And we think as time goes on, you'll find yourself that you'll use this as a way to make money. But right now, let's talk about how we cover that monthly nut and get that taken care of, or that yearly nut in this particular case, and get that out of the way. Well, the second thing we come to is this here. We have the auto ship, but that's where we have our X factor. And I've told you from the beginning, this is the ultimate difference maker. And that if you'll spend 1 hour a week in 90 days, you'll be in the black. 90 days, you'll be into profit. It's going to take a little time to gear up possibly, but if you're spending $30 a month with it 1 hour a week at the end of 90 days, this will be covering your auto ship. All right? Now, so we've used two streams of income to cover these here. We've done it all very quickly. This should all be done in 90 days, so therefore you're not losing any money. You're going to be committed to stay in the program. And then what you have is you have what we like to call, it's really, I call it a bonus, all right? You have your matrix payment, you have your matching, you've got your sign-up bonuses, you've got any other bonuses that are brought along by the company. And when you get those, they're all yours. Now, it's interesting that back in the day with car companies, when they first started out, before Detroit got in so much trouble, a car company would work all year to make a profit. And then at the end of the year, they got a 2% rebate from Ford. And they get a check, and it was 2% rebate, that could be tens of thousands of dollars. And it was a complete bonus because they had made money all year long, and that was a bonus. Well, then what started happening was they started knowing, oh, hey, we have a $300,000 bonus coming at the end of the year, so we'll just go ahead and borrow, and we can lose money all year long as we're getting that bonus at the end, and now look where Detroit is. I mean, that's really what took place in the industry. And so One of the key things we're saying to people is don't use these checks to cover these expenses. Use these two, get the expenses covered. Take this here, and every time it comes in, you know it's money in your pocket. You know, one of the things I like to think about is this here. It's kind of like having a retail store, or it's really kind of like having a piece of property, I should say. You know, let's say that, and you've heard it said, because if you've been around long enough now, you get a piece of property, and someone will say, you know, I had this property, and if I just held on to it, it's sold for $1.2 million now, and I sold it for $50,000. If I just had the foresight to hold on to it. Well, let's say you were to buy a piece of property for investment. All right, when you bought the piece of property for investment, it was in a great location, and you decide, hey, I could put a little retail shop there on that property, and I can do that. Here's what I'm gonna do with the retail shop. The first thing I'm gonna do is I need to cover my taxes, all right? And that's an annual fee. It's kind of like the 149. So it's kind of like the annual fee, and you cover that. The second thing you need to do is you need to make money and cover the upkeep on the property. Now, if you're able to do that, what happens is you're making money, then this property value increase really becomes true value at the end. But you know, most people, what ends up happening is, first of all, if they can't cover these here, they end up having to sell the property early. If they sell the property early, they get less value. Then what other people do is they say, oh, I know this property's gonna be worth so much money, and last year I borrowed money on it and it was worth $200,000, and this year it's up to $300,000. I lost money here, so I'm gonna go ahead and refinance, and I'm refinancing 300, and they keep refinancing. All right, and then when they end up selling the property, sure, they end up selling it for $1.5 million someday, but they owe $1.3 million on it, so they didn't really realize that much money on it because of that situation. But you know what? If they are able to take and have their property covered by their operation, if they can cover that out of operating expenses, and they keep it for the period of time, and they sell it for $1.5 million, well, then they can put that money in their pocket. That's a true bonus. I really look at this whole program similar to that. I look at the fact is that this annual, the annual fee and the monthly fee are expenses, and they can be covered here, they can be covered here, and that position in the matrix, if the company continues to grow, just becomes more valuable each month and each year that goes by. And so it's great value to not have to spend this money to cover these expenses. Get your expenses covered with your quick start bonus and the X factor, and then allow this to be money you can put away as your position continues to gain value as the company continues to grow. I hope the comp plan is simple as 1, 2, 3 to you now. See you in the war room soon.
Now you've seen how Global Traffic Matrix works in our world. You've been in our war room. You see how carefully we lay things out, all so that it'll work best for you. Now, it's your turn.